Speaking of teams that play just absurdly amazing schedules year in and year out, it's lacrosse over at Centera Park. They started their season with a top 5 win over North Carolina, an absolute thriller, 19-18 in overtime. Our very own Daniel Merriman was there to cover the game for us, and I don't know if that was his first lacrosse game at Centera Park, but we can ask him because he's joining us now on the podcast to break down that game, to break down kind of his experience and what he saw out of the Dukes. Daniel, how are you doing on this Tuesday night?
I am doing excellent, Jack. Pleasure to be back on the pod. Happy to talk some women's lacrosse. That is not my first game at Centera. It is my first game covering a team at Centera Park, though.
I knew it was a first. You picked a good game to start. It was 19-18. Dukes jumped out to a 4-0 lead, and then that was kind of the only big lead that the Dukes were able to, or was it 3-0? It was really the only big lead they were able to create in that game.
Yeah, it was a constant game of runs. Carolina and JMU really traded like 3-0, 4-0 back and forth. I think the biggest run for Carolina was 7. The biggest run for JMU was 6 goals straight, where they just could not get a stop. I mean, these goalies were getting punished the whole day. It was a shootout and truly looked like two of the best teams in the nation. It was a really high-scoring match. You alluded to it earlier. Ended regulation at 18-18, and it took a final shot from Katelyn Morgan on the first possession of overtime in sudden death to seal it for the Dukes. Overall, was incredibly fast-paced. Again, there was some pretty bad defense at times, but at the same time, it was also just really good offense and some of the best attackers in the world going back and forth at each other.
Yeah, it was an awesome match. Great result for the Dukes, obviously. What's sort of your thoughts on that defense? Not to go straight to the negatives.
All right, Bennett.
No, but I was curious because they're so young defensively, JMU. What are your thoughts on what the defense might look like in a month or two if some of the players, I guess, maybe find more of a rhythm?
I think in first game, especially against a team that is as good as Carolina is, you're always going to get your weaknesses exposed. You are not going to come out of the jump with a polished product, and that's okay. But the fact that they were able to weather the storm, the fact that Katelyn Morgan, even after getting taken out for the backup in, I believe, the middle of the second quarter, comes back in the second half and has some absolutely critical saves down the stretch to be able to even extend this game into overtime. The defense in also the first, I think it was 5 or 6 minutes, came up with 4 straight stops. And that comes after JMU had 4 less draw controls in the game. They lost 22-18 in that manner. So Carolina had more possessions. They had just about the same amount of shots as JMU, and they weren't getting nearly the conversion rate. We'll take a look at the live stats. But if we have Katelyn Morgan, who ended up having 7 saves on the day, Carolina had 2 different goalkeepers. They combined for 5. She had a 28% save percentage, whereas Carolina's starting goalie had a 25%. Their backup goalie had a 17% save percentage. So at the same time, this is against a quality top 3 team in the nation when they beat them, and they outplayed them on the defensive end and outplayed them in goal. And that was Bowden's first career start as a sophomore. So there's a lot of youth on that back line. There's an incredible amount of poise, however, and a lot of connectedness. There was tons of fast break offense from defensive stops that was allowing this team to get out in transition, push it through the middle zone, and extend their prowess into the attackers, into the front of the crease, and led to, I think, 3 or 4 fast break scores. So that defense, while it wasn't like A1 top tier best in the nation shut down type of stuff, it was certainly signs of what it could be and had a lot of good moments. So I have plenty of faith. I think it'll just take them round into form and show what they're really capable of.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'll be the nice one and focus on the positive here because Bennett just dives right into the negative. Peterson and Epke combined for 12 goals. I think Epke, she finished with 7
and an assist.
That is just an insane number. And coming into the year,
the National Player of the Week, by the way, for that 7 goal scores.
Just an absurd, and like all of the focus coming into the season was on Isabella Peterson for good reason. She averaged a hat trick a game last year. I'm going to mispronounce it. The T. Wharton, the National Player of the National Player of the Year award last year, was a finalist for that. All of the focus is on her, and then Maddie Epke starts this year and goes, watch this, just gets named to National Player of the Week stat. Like, just an insane game from them. What did you see out of the Duke's attack in this game?
Do not let JMU's attackers get to the left side of the crease, or it's going to be a draw control about 15 seconds later. Um, they were pretty unstoppable, and I'm not gonna lie. And it was against some incredibly quality athletes. Carolina recruits with some of the top in the nation. They had one of their transfers. I think it was Ashley Humphrey, who transferred in from Stanford, led the NCAA in assists last year, and she was quarterbacking them the whole day out of that midfield. I mean, they were playing against really good quality opponents and defenders, and at times, especially Peterson was just playing bully ball. It could not get a stop either side, frankly. But the attack for JMU was incredibly poised. We're getting downhill at will. I want to say Epke was 7 for 11 on goals to shots. Like, they were incredibly efficient too, which against that type of defense is astounding. So it was just a clinic the whole day. Watching even Marchetti, the midfielder, who had a hat trick and I want to say 2 assists on the day. No, excuse me, had 3 goals, so she had a hat trick. But Casey Noblock, I believe is how you pronounce her last name, comes back from injury last year. She has 2 goals and 2 assists. It was super well-rounded and definitely had some star power. But overall, the attack for this team is going to lead to, I think, a top 5 offense in the country. They're that good.
They're nuts. Yeah, Epke, just a sophomore, is crazy. 10 draw controls too. Just a stellar game for her.
Which was big for her to grow within that role, because the game started a little rough in the circle.
Yeah, JMU's had some draw control issues over the past year in particular. I remember the Syracuse game in the Elite Eight sticking out like a sore thumb. They have the ability to win these draw controls at a pretty high level. Peterson and Epke are the main draw takers. They say they practice against each other a bunch in practice, are constantly filming each other to watch their tick, they're reacting, what moves they're using, that type of stuff. So they're quite aware that they need to be elite for this team to get where it wants to go. And that's always nice to know in game one that that's a major focus, because you have a whole season to work on it. You have a whole season to try out new moves and things of the such. But yeah, 10 draw controls for Epke was massive. I think Peterson at 6. And it was the story of the game, was how close could they keep the draw control battle, was how close the game was going to be. They kept it within 4 and they won by 1.
Yeah. Imagine how scary they'd be if they're like dominating draw controls, which they will against teams that aren't named North Carolina at certain spots this year.
That schedule is rock solid, but there's definitely some points where you're like, ooh, that's going to be rough for the other team, that is.
They got Virginia Tech next up. You got Towson on the schedule. Towson, a perennial CAA contender. Maryland, at UVA. Johns Hopkins, they played the NCAA tournament a few years ago. Like, just an absurdly tough schedule that should prepare them for, the postseason in a way that I don't think a lot of teams can necessarily say.
They have the best schedule in the entire athletic department, and it's not close.
That's the take. That's the correct take. Here's another take. Lacrosse is the best program on JMU's campus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Consistently, yes.
Yeah.
I think if you're talking about highs of the high, that softball run is up there.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
Odyssey was generational. We can't ignore that.
That's
and
a good point.
Football at their level, being a G5, is about as good as you can get. But in terms of national level dominance, nobody's touching Lacrosse. I mean, they're ranked number 3 after the first poll was released. That's unheard of for anywhere else in Harrisonburg.
Natty within the last decade. Yeah, they got some good stuff. And it sounds like, Daniel, they're already kind of thinking national title again from what you had heard post-game. Is that right?
Yes, there was some significant murmurs and talks about it kind of in and around the stadium. When you get a team this good, it's like the old joke, like, oh, what's next? Going to win in the Natty? And they're like, yeah, no, actually. And when you talk to Isabella Peterson post-game, she says, hey, 2018, the last time we beat these kids, Carolina, we beat them twice, and the second time was en route to a national championship. And they did it in overtime in a season opener in 2018. They do it in overtime in a season opener in 2024. So I think that there was some significant focus on it. They've been training as if that's the goal. Maddie Epke said post-game, we believe that we deserve it. Now it's our time to earn it. And that's just one heck of a quote. But yeah, just there's nothing but dedication, connectiveness, and high-level athletes with an incredible coach behind them to boot on this roster and within this program. I think the national championship is solely set on their sights right now.
Best
a lot of
coach on
games in
campus.
between now and then. But
Yeah, a lot of games. A lot of tough games, but best coach on campus too. That's my other take.
yeah, you got some that are getting poached. Seems like Shelly Clay's a Duke herself, a graduate, is going to be hopefully staying around for a little while. Has already, but gosh, is she awesome.
A lot of wins. A lot of wins for Shelly.
I was about to ask earlier, there's a couple of current Dukes that are coaches now. You have O'Regan, you have Laporte. Is that a Duke as well? Am I mistaken in saying that?
I can't remember.
She was an assistant. I don't know if she played for JMU.
I don't know if she did, but I know that Clay's did. So there's a couple of them, and
Lou Rowe, how could we forget?
Oh, I can forget. But overall, she's definitely the best returning Duke from player to coach, I think, that the university's ever seen.
Laporte was Roanoke College, so like
adjacent,
local ties, but obviously she's not like leaving JMU to coach Roanoke College softball. So
you'd hope
disrespect to the ODAC.
No, there's no like separate alum poll. That's all.
Not a disrespect to a Division III conference.
I was in there too. Come on.
200 wins for Laporte now.
Really? Oh, yeah, she got that this past weekend.
Which game did she get that in?
They played 5. I have no idea.
One of them. They tweeted it like after the weekend, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But no. Very fun team to watch. If you all get the chance to head out to Centera, I would recommend. It's a great time. There was honestly probably 600, 700, 800 people there. Had some students in attendance as well. The lacrosse parents tailgate harder than just about anyone you'd expect. It's a fun time. It's a little rowdy down there in Centera, so I would recommend you coming out. It's a really good team that you're going to be able to watch and hopefully en route to a lot of postseason success this year.
Yeah, sometimes those Olympic sport parents go hard in their tailgates.
Oh, yeah. The Carolina contingent was awesome. I pulled into the parking lot up at the top of Centera, and I just see that they have like a big old blue, like the Tar Heel blue trailer with a mini bar set up out of the back of it, got a TV going for a game. I'm like, oh, you all are organized. Okay.
They probably just go around the whole East Coast setting up shop at each of their away games. And I bet Chapel Hill on a women's lacrosse game day is probably very lit.
Oh, I can imagine it's electric. But hey, JMU, everything's cool, turning into hopefully a shell of that atmosphere sometime soon.
Fingers crossed. Well, Daniel, thank you for taking the time out on your Tuesday to talk some lacrosse. We hope to have you on throughout the season as the Dukes go on a little bit of a natty run here throughout May.
Yep, very excited to watch them. Very excited to be reporting back with you all. Again, got my ad on screen. If any of you all don't follow me already, would love to have you. I post game updates as well as just JMU random shenanigans. So thank you very much for having me on, boys. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of the pod, and take care. Cheers.
You as well. See you, man.